What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the stream. This is your friend Duck Nathan. I am so happy to be here with you guys tonight. No place I'd rather be. No place I'd rather be. We are gonna have. I'm fiddling around just a little bit. I'm just checking to make sure on YouTube the stream goes live. But yeah, I'd love to have a topic about democracy and about Trump's decline. Maybe we can look a little bit at the mechanisms. I know this isn't the most exciting thing for people, but yeah, let me ask you, I'll ask the question. I will ask the question, is it the case that, in a democracy we have to play this always on role? You know, I mean honestly, I do get sick of it sometimes. You guys might also get sick of it. Um, you know, it's so hard. It's one of those things where it's so hard. It's one of those things where when we're actually looking to leaders in Washington to kind of take the problems of the day by the reins, so often I get disappointed. I think a lot of voters do. You guys maybe know this. I'm a little more obsessed than other people. I'm a little more obsessed. I was a political science major. I love political philosophy. I get so excited about it sometimes I can't even talk on stream. I can't even think of the one topic I want to talk about, not because, whatever, maybe I am. Maybe I am like, Bill O'Reilly or Tucker Carlson. I'm one of these guys that's got donuts rolling around his head. I feel like such an idiot. I feel like an idiot. Hey, good to see you. The stupid translating things, the translation service isn't working again. Hey Allah. So guys, if anybody speaks Turkish, please be kind to our guests. If anyone speaks the Turkish language, be kind, and inviting, charitable, all this kind of stuff, of course, right? You're talking to someone who's interested in politics, so sorry, but yeah, and so I don't fancy myself a moron or an idiot all the time, but maybe I am. But my problem is I do get so excited. I do get so excited about politics and trying to figure out what this con man, the snake oil salesman Donald Trump's got up his sleeves. And giving him fair credit, giving the guy fair credit where credit's due. He seems to be everywhere politics is. He seems to be calling on, the socialist mayor in New York, Zoran Mamdani. He's the belle of the ball. He's so popular. I'm a little skeptical of him. We can talk about that later. Maybe you guys can correct me if any of you guys have different views on Mamdani. But yeah, Donald Trump, the guy's everywhere. He's too many places. I don't want to be in Iran personally. I don't want to. I'm really opposed to it. I'm really opposed to being in Venezuela. The Gulf of, this Gulf of Mexico, this sort of like wherever the Atlantic meets the U.S. is like now, the Gulf of the USS Liberty or something. This, to me, this stuff is unacceptable. It's uninviting for voters to like. Nobody, like, I'm not gonna travel to Venezuela this year. I'm not gonna travel to Cuba this year. Leave us out of it. Keep it more simple. I don't think that there's some, large Cuban force or Venezuelan force threatening me and my family. I didn't think that the fry cook at the Zips Sports Grill that ICE raided just up the street from me, I didn't think those guys were plotting anything. So leave me alone, Donald Trump, please. Yeah, the Gulf of America, everything, the Gulf of Spain. Yeah, everything, the new Trump Armada. This guy's such a buffoon and a clown. He wanted to build the world's biggest battleship. I mean, I played the board game. I played the battleship board game. You would say like A3 or F5, whatever it was. You sunk my battleship. But that's a video game, right? That's a board game. It's on Steam now. I didn't want Donald Trump speaking truth into the fire on that stuff. You know, so I am a little frustrated. It looks like we do have some Donald Trump fans. We've got some Make America Great Again fans, some America First fans in the audience. But guys, we may disagree about this, but let's look at what's actually happening. We have these no votes. We've got Donald Trump's moved back to domestic politics. He did this big sort of pivot where very smart, actually very cunning from a political standpoint. Give the guy credit where credit's due. Okay, I'm not saying he's a genius. I'm not saying he's a mastermind. He's still the orange buffoon to me. But he sent JD Vance to Pakistan, got him in the news, got him back home, kind of urging the American people to rethink about JD Vance as their vice president. And then he sent this big dummy out to go talk about, I don't know what it was, Doctors Within Borders or something. What do you do with all the kids that took Tylenol and now have autism, according to him? You pseudoscientific clown, you buffoon, right? You anti-science buffoon, you anti-education, anti-intellectual, elitist buffoon. But he's right. He's right. I did a stream earlier today. We talked about his very amicable meeting with Mayor Zoran Mamdani a few months back, and both him and Mamdani came out of the meeting saying, we didn't really accomplish anything. We don't see eye to eye on some stuff, but it was a perfectly fine meeting. And now Zoran Mamdani's back in the spotlight. Bernie Sanders called this out the other day. Hey, what's going on? I am the science guest. Bernie Sanders called us out the other day and reminded us that Zoran Mamdani told us that he wanted to spend $20 billion on apartments for New Yorkers. New Yorkers can't afford to live there. And look, I want to see this from both sides. I'm a progressive Democrat. I don't live in New York, but I'm also a little confused why my taxpayers' dollars. Hey, what's going on, Puggles? Good to see you. I'm a little confused why my taxpayers' dollars on the federal level are going into New York City. And this is not from a Make America Great Again sort of standpoint. It's just a little bit like a little fiscal conservative sort of sense. And so I would encourage people. We've got the really funny image. Let me know what you think about this. Is Trump in decline? Is democracy taking over? And does this work on both sides? We all got a little bit out of pocket. We all got a little bit insane. And for the time being, it seems like we have a couple things working. Oh my God. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Puggles. I appreciate it. Huge $100 super chat in from Primordial Puggles. You guys, when people say make America great again, I just want to mention make Australia great again. Here's what I can do for Puggles. I can't do much. Puggles is one of the most charitable people on the internet, but I will say this. Out to you guys. Australia is such a beautiful landmass. Instead of Donald Trump, this orange buffoon, this absolute clown, this downhole ragamuffin, this con artist, this snake oil salesman, whatever you want to say, instead of calling so-called third world countries, then calling them poop holes or whatever, why not look at how beautiful the landmass actually is, right? And the fact that we have governments, societies, civilizations is amazing. Anthony Albanese, I don't know the guy. I'll maybe, I've got a passport around here somewhere, but I'll maybe never travel to Australia. But hey, you have a labor guy in next. Guess what's going to persist after that? It's the environment, the ecosystem, the ecology. And so, I'm going to be up here talking U.S. politics quite a bit. I wish I could do more for people in Pakistan, Turkey. I wish I could do more for the pro-Israel, pro-Gaza crowd. I wish I could do more to comment on your issues for you. Puggles, you may like, I did a live stream the other day on Gaza, Palestine. If you're ever looking for light listening, it's a little more of a thorough analysis. You may enjoy that. I'm going to try to do more of those too, guys, for members as well as just general subscribers. Instead of going surface level, trying to get to the root core of the problem, nice, easy to sort of chew on bites of stuff, trying to do some quality content. But let's take a second and remember that whatever's going on in politics, you've got pine trees, you've got north flowing and south flowing rivers, you've got the great American poets from around the world writing about, these great divides in countries and stuff like this. So just a moment to remember that this is one of the things that persists and exists beyond and after us, guys. We all got to grow up a little bit. Me too. Scott says, I think both sides of the aisle are corrupt, plain and simple. Wait, are you not Democratic? No, I do. I hope I am Democratic, right? I call myself a lazy liberal. This is how Democratic I am. Is I want welfare. I want a welfare state. I want social safety nets. Maybe I'm not so sure about this $20 billion owned apartment deal that Zoran Mamdani's pushing for, but I do want social safety nets. But I want them so much that some elections I don't need to vote. Some elections I don't need to get upset about things. I do need to get upset about things when Donald Trump is out front and steering us in the wrong direction. What's going on? We've got Kane in chat. Good to see you. The world will be better without politics. Yeah. Hey, I wish it could be so. You know, if I could put, if I could put myself in the middle of this for just a second, I would love a cabin in the woods personally, right? I'd love a cabin in the woods. I'd love to see the idiots taking care of themselves in Washington, D.C. and in my local government. Hey, no offense. No, but like Teddy Roosevelt, right? Let me get off the grid. This is what I mean by that. Let me get off the grid. Let me do my prepper stuff, whatever. I'm not really a prepper, but give me a second to get my ducks in a row, so to speak. Give me a second to do the things I need to do to take care of myself. And then ask what I can do, to actually pitch into a democracy, to a society, what I can do for people at work. Life would be so much better if I could just not be political for the majority of my life. I don't need to answer what a political life is all in one cycle. Teddy Roosevelt, the genius that he is, beautiful man, absolutely beautiful man. Keep this in mind, please. He said that we shouldn't corrupt ourselves over economics. You guys, I'm going to keep chanting this. Teddy Roosevelt, he was talking to, and you're not going to like this. I'm sorry. I would be in that audience. I would be in the audience listening to Teddy Roosevelt, wondering if this guy actually fathered my children or something. But I'd be listening to this guy, and he was talking to a bunch of idiots in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, a bunch of morons, and he's talking to them about their philosophy, their values in economics. He's talking to morons like me, beta simp males like me, telling them that, you guys can consider what a good life is while you're going out performing your civic duty and while you're being the family man that you wanted to be, right? This is what makes the United States great, is you can define your civic duty based on what's best for your family. None of this esoteric, religious, theocratically informed nonsense. It's just a practical reality. And when you make it philosophical, when you make it less religious, when you make it tangible for people, crunchy for people, that's what ultimately separates us. Yeah, thanks so much, Puggles. Yeah, if anyone wants to double tap your screen, likes this stream, you guys can sub. Heck yeah, we've got some of the America First, Make America Great people, or not. It's not that. So good to see everyone, though. Good to see everyone. Yeah, human race is the only race. Hey, just to give you guys the forewarning, we are going to get into the topic of the night, Trump in decline, in a moment here. So if you guys want to avoid politics, feel free to offer a sub or whatever. We'll catch you guys another time. Not an Eagle says we're all humans. Yeah, it sounds like, hey, there's one world, one human species, all this stuff. And also shout out, hey Allah. Guys, we do try to cover geopolitics. We've got friends from Turkey. We've got friends from Pakistan, India. We try to be as accommodating as we can. I hope the translate's working on your guys' side. Hello. And yeah, I try to be as accommodating as possible. We got to handle some business tonight, though, in the U.S. We got to handle some business for democracy. And look at, we have this Ponzi scheme of a president who told us to make America great again. And I can even show you guys this. I don't have to go too far. I can show you guys this. Let me pull myself up on the big screen, big belly and all. I want to show you, this is what this moron, Trump, he is a political genius, okay? So for the MAGA folks, guys, I'm not trying to take away from our current sitting president. This guy plays ball, right? This guy plays ball, apparently. And, he wrote this book himself. It's a great book. He wrote it himself. And, I think that smart people that read this book would say this man, this president, this Make America Great Again president has no idea what he's talking about when it comes to politics. This is called Great Again. And so this is the reason tonight, Trump has recently lost a vote on the Iranian war, on the Iranian conflict. Donald Trump has recently lost. Donald Trump has recently lost many of the most senior leaders of his new MAGA GOP. He had to kick him out of office. And God, we certainly hope, I hope all Americans are hoping for their health issues to sort of whatever ails them is going away. And so I think it's a great time to ask when the levers of democracy, when causation in the world actually comes back to bite you. How do different people perceive this question? How do different people around the world perceive when democracy works, when society works? Which of those is bigger? Is politics bigger than society, or is society bigger than politics? it makes you wonder, one of the big criticisms of the woke movement, the woke leftism, and I'll beat up, and I apologize, but if you call yourself a leftist and come into the stream and you want to prove a point, you want to make content in chat, you've got the snap cut edit, and suddenly your statement there is there. Um, I'll make fun of you a little bit, and yeah, I so I love having the Make America Great folks here because you guys do make great points, right? And as voters, when we draw the line that we disagree and the future is coming for both of us, the future is coming for folks all over the world. And maybe you agreed with none of Sleepy Joe. Maybe I agreed with most of what Sleepy Joe did as president. We still get to see how the world works. Spencer Pratt, guys. Okay, so for my MAGA folks, do you guys think this reality star is the next grifter? Is he the next MAGA grifter? Does he actually have good intentions in mind? To me, it seemed very presumptuous that he gets to office and suddenly, it's the Lord. The Lord is blessing him, giving him strength to go do this thing. Oh, the Lord and my wife, the Lord and my wife. And he wants to run just like Zoran Mamdani got elected in a landslide to run one of the biggest cities in the world. He wants to run Los Angeles. There's the Port of Los Angeles, guys. There's unions. There's Hollywood. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there. And I'll jump into comments in a second here. But you guys steer me in the right direction here. Am I seeing this right? So, Donald Trump. So here's my storyline. Here's my narrative. Tell me where I got this wrong. Donald Trump has to remind America that J.D. Vance is vice president. He has to remind America that J.D. Vance has a role in domestic politics in the U.S. He has to remind America that, yeah, he appointed this Mark Wayne Mullen guy, and as painful as it is, we still have to see that he's covering for the problems of the previous ICE administration. Softball stuff. And he's hoping that we can talk about the present moment. We can talk about moving forward as a country. We can talk about his policy objectives, and we can talk about what's in the best interest of the nation. We don't have to talk about that one time he tried to deploy the National Guard over the majority of the country. We don't have to talk about that one time where, what was it that, we don't have to talk about, the one time that he's in the Epstein files, all this other stuff. And when we look at a political reality, I think that 350 million people in the United States, our big ass country, our big money, our big rich country, I think we're going forward into the future. And it's a Trumpless future. Hey, I'm sorry. I think you blew your last trumpet, Mr. President, Mr. Trump. I think the band is singing you out. Trump is in decline. Let me know where I changed my mind, what I changed my mind on. Guys, I'm going to go through some comments. You guys can always tag me at DucksY, and I will put it in chat for you guys. If you need me to read something, you guys don't have to send super chats. Puggles was very generous with the super chat. And you don't have to send super chats if you want to just tag me at DucksY. We're just having some fun here, guys. And yeah. Yeah, and I'm going to go through comments now on my side, maybe bring some stuff up that you guys wanted to talk about. And that's all I had. That's all the prepared remarks I had for you guys. So we'll kick it down to you guys. Hey, what's going on? We've got Cranky Mullet, guys. Show some love for the mods in chat. Cranky Mullet's always here, always having a good time, willing to discuss, have some fun, always willing to regulate stuff, keep a safe, fair environment for us, guys. We can disagree vigorously about ideas, about processes, about where our ideas come from. It's an infinite space, guys. It's an infinite space. It's like the entire universe lives in a person. I want to remind you guys, before we get into comments, before we get into the real hard MAGA Make America Great stuff, you guys are all beautiful people. I'm playing a character up here. I call myself an idiot. Sometimes I call other people in the world an idiot. But yeah, there's a veritable universe inside us. So Thanks to Cranky Mullet for donating their time to be here tonight. And also, yeah, all this stuff, whatever. So let's see. I'm just going to go sequentially, and tag me if I see a new message come up. I'll jump to you guys. What's going on, Azrael Zero? I think education improvements are far past due. If you don't have education, you lose everything else. Yeah, you know what I think? I think this is also a global value. I don't get how Donald Trump manages the inconsistency here. He knows that as he's representing the United States interests in our hemisphere and globally, he knows when globally. Whoops. I'll leave that message up for just a minute. And let me tune this up for you guys. Donald Trump knows that he can go anywhere in the world, and I'm sorry, I know I'm kind of clumsy. I'm kind of clumsy. I'm a little clumsy, dumsy, wumsy. Whoops. Let's go. Yeah, as Donald Trump goes through and manages the policies, he decides what he wants to select for us. He knows that in the Americas and as the U.S. operates around the world, education's a core issue. It's an issue in feminism. It's an issue in early childhood development. It can be a health issue. It's also an issue in liberalization. Can you imagine a society that knows more about superstitious religions, in my opinion, sorry, such as Christianity, such as Islam, such as Judaism. But can you imagine a civilization that does not have a strong academic baseline in which to build an educated workforce? It's a really sad thing. And so I'm calling out the internet, the sort of global value here. Maybe we see it differently, right? Maybe the US should say, hey, let's put a boot up your ass, right? The American way of doing things is finding something that works for us. And if you don't want to get on board with it, you don't have to. I don't know. It starts locally, I guess. Um, do you think the Iran war is justified or a disaster? I think it's a disaster, right? People died in that conflict. People have died already in Iran. Um, whatever liberal norms did exist, whatever liberal norms seem to have been weakened. Anytime there's external geopolitical pressure, there's more pressure put on for authoritarianism. These sort of authoritarian drifts that happen. Iran's government isn't like, if it was a cartoon character, it wouldn't be Fluffy McDuckerson. It wouldn't be like a pillow pet or something like this. It would not be it would not be super amenable to people. It would not be super amenable to all people. Um, but I still don't understand, because I'm not a neoconservative. I don't understand the US's role in intervening there. So for my MAGA friends, for my America First crowd, for my GOPs and MAGA Republicans in the audience, why are we there is what I would ask. Why are we there? What expertise or what value do we add for America's national security interest or our economic interests intervening in this society that we don't know about, this government that we don't know about? Someone's happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Month. Feminism is amazing. So both of those together. Hey, I'm just going to give you guys a quick warning. We're having a friendly political conversation tonight. If I want you to help build the channel, I appreciate it, right? I appreciate feedback. If you guys come in here and sort of demand to be recognized, and if you're disruptive, I'll at some point I'm going to time you guys out. So I appreciate the help. I appreciate the consideration, but thank you. At this time, I'm not looking for help building the channel. I'm actually very happy to have 20 viewers even. I'd be happy to have 5 people here that want to hang out and talk. It's not a virtue signal. We're a small channel, so thank you. David Pacman, this is to Scott's comment. China is so far ahead of the USA as far as education, and frankly, it's sad. And frankly, it is sad. David Pacman had posted about the brain drain. The brain drain is basically this loss of advanced degrees in the United States and lack of college enrollment. So it's very important to see what happens when you go to school and what happens when you graduate. And there likely are a lot of shifts that will happen in the age of artificial intelligence. But we're still living in the same world. We're still living in the same world that is built on literally pumping oil out of the ground, ultimately turning the fossil fuels that we have and our brain power, right? Factory farming, agriculture, turning all these things into systems that, sort of on top and which we aim at in order to maintain a society. I think conservatives and Democrats may see this slightly differently. Where I do think Democrats tend to see this as exploitation. Some conservatives may say, yeah, I can see it that way if we're having a discussion, but this is also the goal or target of a society. So, I don't want to speak for other people, but which is it? Which is it? Um, and so the only reason I bring this up in the context of education is, what are you going to do when you graduate? I think that if we're not talking about civic virtues, being civic minded, being a civic leader, in some sense, if we're wondering why democracy seems to be clawing Trump back, oh, I know. I'm so sorry. Unk is on something. Hey, thanks for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Unk is on something. He's talking about how democracy or society, some system, a system thing, a system is fixing itself. It's just because we're good natured or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, it's weird. I think there's a bigger problem when people aren't voting for education, because the data is clear. Going to school is a huge advantage. I'd love that political discussion, how we can promote higher education. It's one of my main values. And yeah, this is yeah. Unfortunately, as well, I will call out this comment. Infern all Alice, Infernalis. Inferno Alice 2.0. Yeah, it is an AI slot banner. I don't like making one-time use banners, so maybe I'll put in a short or something later. But yeah, I try to limit. I try to keep, if I'm using AI, I try to keep 95% of the content not AI. But I did want to do. One of my friends had a really cool kind of channel setup, so I wanted to make big bold letters that said "Trump in decline" or something like this. Happy Veterans Month. Yeah, shout out to veterans in the audience tonight. Thank you guys for your service from whatever country you're from, too. I don't think there's a global warrior culture, but if there is such a thing, then what's up? What good has feminism done? Feminism wins in the end, is what I would say. John Connor, 4330. Great question, though. I mean, you guys can talk about that a little bit amongst yourselves too. Yeah, but I mean, look at Pride Month. I would imagine feminists would say that, well, intersectionality is just one approach to common sense. When people aren't having a good go at society and the causes are clearly identifiable and it becomes so dominant, you don't think about anything else. That's like a real experience, and so we should try to avoid that. And it's a story that's played out many, many times for many different reasons and many different systems. So just the fact that feminism, I would say, if I had to make an argument for John Connor, and you can tell me why I'm wrong, feel free to tag me. But yeah, I would say that, in the big stories, the big changes we've made in terms of individualism, in terms of having guarantees of rights, in terms of having universal citizenship, right? No partial citizenship. You all have protection of the law. You all have all the rights guaranteed by the Constitution. Feminism has always been big, right on those big things in the end. And that's not the only argument. It's not the only argument. But I do think the fact that without feminism, people seem to have not referenced intersectionality and been wrong their entire life. And this is just one way of arguing it. People misjudge human nature. They misjudge causality. They misjudge what you get back from doing something like having an education or having wealth. These things don't produce the types of long-term changes. So without feminism, who knows? Maybe you say the world goes on, but I just think, well, that's always true. Don't tell me that. So John, in your response, don't tell me the world goes on without feminism. We agree on that. But that's always true, right? The world always goes on. So yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah. Hey, I'm down with Pride Month. I heard the Pride Parade, the organization that organizes Pride Parade, had to file for Chapter 11 or Chapter 13 bankruptcy. But I'd certainly hope, yeah, I'd certainly hope that people looking for support can all get together on Facebook or Meetup or whatever it is. And those are important, right? It's important because when you get underneath, if you are, I think if you're too thick or dumb to realize that gay rights was a civil rights movement, it's one that's still going on today. It's the same gay rights movement. We can disagree on some of this, but it is hyper political. It's social. It can be about what a good life is. It's about a lot of stuff. So I'm very excited for Pride Month. I'm using my little rainbow emoji when I'm around on YouTube, trying to have myself a good day. And yeah. Heck yeah. Should be a Veterans Month, not Pride Month. that only needs to be a day or a week. Yeah, I mean, there are stories, stories like Harvey Milk, very influential American politician. It's rare to see, why Harvey Milk's story is powerful or impactful. It's rare to see a municipal politician gain national attention anywhere, right? Because if you think about it, there's 1,000 mayors, there's 1,000 or 10,000 mayors in the United States. One of them is born every second, right? Just like idiots or morons. And so the fact that Harvey Milk during his life was so impactful is just one story about how important I think Pride Month can be if you make it so. Even dedicating a couple minutes to learning about Harvey Milk. And yeah, he was a member of the executive branch of the government. He had ambitions. He was more honest than many people. This is one of the things people loved about Harvey Milk is he was elected and governed without hiding his identity and his opinions about identity. That was very uncommon in the US at the time. And then he ultimately ended up being assassinated, right? So he was a victim of a hate crime, right? A politically motivated hate crime. And so the fact that, if you actually look at one of the reasons Harvey Milk has biopics about him and stuff like this, Milk, the movie, you can watch Milk if you want. Is because if you think there's 10,000 mayors, so okay, the chance that you get a Harvey Milk is already 1 in 10,000 because there is one Harvey Milk, and then he's assassinated, right? How rare is that? How many mayors or governors are assassinated? Almost none. And so his story is really 1 in 1 million. When we see those small differences, the reason people love AOC's Bernie Sanders, the reason people loved Ron Paul, the reason people love John McCain, the reason people loved these folks, big reason is because they were 1 in 1 million politicians. So I would encourage you guys, kind of your grown moment. You guys are getting ready for smart girl summer, hot girl summer, whatever it is. Hey, I'm not going to dwell on it, but if you guys really want to get down, watch that Milk movie. Maybe go to the IMDb page or Wikipedia, learn about this 1 in 1 million story. And that's it. Um, it's sad that most people who started movements were killed by someone going against them, like MLK. Yep, yeah. That's always political violence. Again, political violence creates these 1 in 1 million stories, so they're very rare to see. Yeah. And to me, that's more. I don't mind. I don't mind it. I was watching N10 on whatever his name is on CNN, their data analytics guy. He's very interesting. I love watching the data scientists chew up the political numbers, tell us what's going on. Hey, tell me if I'm right that Trump's in decline. It looks like a lot of the statistics are backing that independents are drifting even further out of Republican voting territory on certain issues. So it looks like this is right. It looks like democracy is correcting itself back to a slightly more reasonable, but still not, I don't know. There's some future out problem that some people want to spot, but the other thing is that there's ordinary stories like you guys, my MAGA friends can get mad at me, but one of the reasons your progressive friends may like AOC's Green New Deal, really uncommon. A junior member of the Senate introducing this huge, audacious legislation platform that would totally change how the law is administered and how budgets are written. Incredibly unpopular, very, very low probability of passing. But the fact that she was first able to even introduce the legislation in the first place, she was able to run on these abolish ICE platforms, and then the fact that she continued to get elected, this tells us something about democracy. I think we need people that are ambitious. Hey, maybe that was Donald Trump, guys. Maybe we do have fundamental differences between us, but who knows? Trump is extremely influential on modern American politics. Yeah, he really is. Donald Trump is 1 in 1 million as well. He's the guy who was talking in the 1980s and 90s how he wanted to run for president. I wish he hadn't. I wish he hadn't been so honest. I wish he hadn't been so honest. Let's see. I've got our Sanskrit. Our friend with the name in Sanskrit says Trump single-handedly ruins the. Oops, sorry, I'm throwing up in my mouth. Trump single-handedly ruins the relation with India and other democratic nations around the world. The lady on friendly countries are very dangerous for mutual understanding and defense collaboration. Cool. Um, yeah, I would tend to agree, to some extent, yeah, we can look at NATO alliances, we can look at different regional, geopolitical, and economic ways that the United States views security concerns. Um, yeah, yeah, and yeah, I mean, I think you would have to be a little more specific than this. I'd keep in mind China is a huge trade partner of the United States, and while offensive realism has gained significance recently, I personally think, not that preparedness isn't good, but I do believe it's also in relation to the increased military spending. It's also this new force of perhaps bioweapons, AI design related to bioweapons, and cyber warfare. The fact that there are now non-nuclear but still WMD sort of level territories of threats that may emerge. There's a good reason why we may be seeing some of the conversations and dialogues that there are. It still doesn't make a ton of sense that taxpayer dollars are posturing traditional kinetic weapons, and we're seeing such an elongated war in Russia and the Ukraine. We are seeing more disruption in oil cartels in the Middle East. We are seeing disruption in U.S. energy supplies, even with Venezuela. This is a form of disruption. Um, you know, I long term, I don't see any of this as good. I see it as a breaking of world order and an over reliance on things that are new and that don't exist yet. Um, I don't understand why when things exist that you can declare in before they exist that you'd never want to use them. I don't understand why that's not the modus operandi. Welcome back to feminism a little bit too. It would be hard for me to imagine a Secretary of State like Hillary Clinton going on the world stage and wondering like straight on, wondering without any sort of humor or comedy or sarcasm in her voice. If it's the case that you can AI design viruses, or you can computer viruses or bioviruses, you can AI design, nanobots and stuff like this, these very tiny things. You can AI design material science. What if you could actually make something invisible using AI technology? That sounds incredibly stupid, but that's the world we live in. Why wouldn't you just say straight ahead that, yeah, we don't think that any weapons that come from AI that are already bigger and more destructive, more pervasive than anything else that existed before it, should be allowed? You should just be able to say that. This is really one of the world's dumbest show and tell sessions from the perspective of strategy, in my opinion. And so I do think, for my MAGA folks in the crowd, my America First guys, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think the U.S. has a moral position to posture on weapons and stuff like this. I think Trump is really messing up our relationship with other nations, and Republicans are strong with their side. Hey, what's going on THQ? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, is the and so this maybe one interesting question is, is there an academic character to institutions in the United States if we are seeing now 18 months into Donald Trump's presidency that institutions seem to be pushing back against Donald Trump? It's going to be more interesting when we get to the 2026 and then 2028 elections. As parents are learning about the role of AI on their families, on education, as parents are hearing feedback from teachers groups, as independents get to see more of the Trump presidency play out, and they get to see these drastic, grave national security narratives either come to fruition, come to some head, or reveal themselves to be actually lies, to be based on misleading documentation, and based on half truths, and truly what appears like corruption in some sense. I think a lot of people that are skeptical of the military industrial spending complex and see that it isn't just expedient to blame things on money, blame things on corruption, but it's actually the case that you have actors with incentives to see problems a certain way, and so decisions get made a certain way. We're not living on a different planet. This is still planet Earth. But will it be the case that institutions that exist to serve independence, exist to serve you as a citizen, exist to support values of such as cosmopolitanism, institutions which exist to serve democratic norms irrespective of whose border they fall in. You know, a lot of people would wonder, yeah, we didn't want Donald Trump going on escapades into, new democracies, industrializing nations. It's not just multipolarity. People were saying, get it out. We don't need as much help as you think. We have the internet. You idiot, you morons, right? Not even Trump, but you buffoons. In some sense, it can be both you do-gooders or you neoconservative, colonialist, imperialist pigs. Get out of my country. Okay, cool. I say, hey, that's pretty good for me. That works for me personally. But yeah, what is the nature? What would it look like if you sketched out education in the U.S. Or our system of laws? It seems like these court rulings are doing pretty good. He's robbing us blind like he did with his casinos. Yeah, it'd be interesting it would be, if Donald Trump if I had the chance to do like a fireside chat with President Trump, or to hear him on a TED stage or get coffee with him, whatever, the very famous 2-minute Trump phone call, the reassuring phone calls he does, I would ask him, I'd want to know, what he thinks has provided the most value to Trump brand customers, to loyal Trump brand enthusiasts over his lifetime. Because Trump Tower was very popular. For a while, his university was very popular. A lot of the watches and stuff that he's put out, these have been very popular products and goods. I'm always wondering, why it seems like there's no direct relation between geopolitics and how Trump's run his businesses. And yeah, despite the fact he has been convicted of things like he doesn't run his businesses through lawyers. He's been convicted of fraud in his New York charity, his breast cancer charity, and things like this. It would still be interesting to pick his brain and wonder what underlies all this. How is that about America? What's his view? I don't see how that would ever emerge into sort of the level of posturing and and threats that he's put out that seemed consistent. But I'd love to, who knows, if everyone would shut up for a minute and he would admit that the democracy is letting him lose, then maybe we could talk, right? Maybe we could have a great conversation and Donald Trump could share what he has to share with all of us. TDF, tiny brains, outlook, tiny imagination, no skills except for avoiding work. Yeah, that's a very cruel thing to say. That's a very cruel statement. I think it's misplaced. It is misplaced. John, I would encourage you, if you're out there, maybe it's not, maybe you're like a Buddhist monk, you're out there, you're like a Catholic priest, you're out there serving the poor, you're wondering what you can do for your country, all kinds of stuff like this. And yeah, I would deeply encourage you to consider, maybe consider for a moment, if that's misplaced. Hey, what's going on, Dale Cooper? Yeah, I love ducks because I used to go running every day. So this is a fun one for me to answer. I know it's not going to show up super nicely, but it's going to show up a little bit. Ducky, why do you love ducks? I love ducks because I used to go hiking, jogging, walking, running, existing every day. And I love ducks. I loved seeing ducks by the pond. I love ducks. So yeah. I love the real life animal ducks. My friend made me this AI picture. And you guys can see we've got the same Nike sneakers. I'll put myself next to it real quick so you guys can see it. You guys can see me and the duck have the same background. If I maximize it, yeah, there's the same Nike shoe, same grandpa's painting. So it's just kind of like an AI face swap or something. I thought it was pretty funny, so I want to be able to use this one on my stream. There's one more. I don't know that I downloaded the other one. I got to, but yeah. Yeah, and the channel is called Ducks Why, but I like real life ducks, right? I don't mind putting myself out there a little bit. I am playing a character online, guys. I'll be completely upfront and frank about this. I'm playing a character online, guys. When I'm online, I'm trying to get my political message out there. I'm trying to learn from you guys, trying to bring researched opinions, evidence conversations. Obviously there's some bias here, but you guys can overcome that. Welcome to politics, right? But yeah, I really love animals. And if you guys ask me a question about myself, then I'm happy to share. It's America. Yeah. Cindy C seems like, yeah, Cindy C seems like she is bringing a great criticism of individualism, individualism or liberalism. Is this the same thing? It's hard to say, I agree with Cindy that we are living in a very selfish time. It's incredibly frustrating. But I also don't think that even someone I hate and disagree with, like John Locke, right? I don't hate the guy, but I really disagree with his philosophy, his political thought. I don't think it leads to anything good. Individuals and a person, is this meant to mean the same thing? It's hard to say. When I'm talking about like a philosophical sense of free will or having a will towards something, uh, when I'm doing politics and I'm ultimately discerning, when I'm doing politics and I'm ultimately maybe doing judgment and intuition simultaneously, trying to figure out where I am. I think this is still not exactly what's meant by an individual in philosophy. It's not what's meant by a self, but this is way different. When we're spending $150,000 on pickup trucks, we expect our landlords to crank up the rent price every month. No offense to you, landlords. I know how tough it is, but we're getting back down. We're not finding ways to get back to discussing foundational problems in our economy, and we're not able to apply that same sort of selflessness or an attempt at it, right? An attempt to be considerate, an attempt to be compassionate, an attempt to feel empathy about music, art, movies, the world, other people, whatever. It is America, right? America. You know, I mean, honest to God, right? I cannot picture Bessie. I cannot picture Bessie. Bessie the cow. No offense, I'm a vegan, but I can't imagine Bessie wondering, what a tomahawk steak came out of her for, and somebody's got to explain it's because you wanted to buy a Dodge Ram pickup truck. Give me a goddamn break. Give me a goddamn break. I can't imagine it, guys. Yeah. If you guys go to my throne, I kind of have an ironic meme throne page open, which is a way that creators can basically grift for more money, right? I beg Mama Puggles for more money on Throne. No, but honestly, go to you guys, like, let's say you're buying a computer or a cell phone. You guys can spend, if it's an important decision, I don't think it's wrong for someone to spend a couple weeks or a couple months shopping for products. And not just that, but thinking in a moral sense about some of the things that we're going to ask technology to do for us, as well as asking about the thing we're ultimately going to produce. Not everyone's going to have that with like buying something, but when we think of America, when we think of people, to me, the part that what really grinds my gears, guys, hey, Buddy Duck here is going to tell you what really grinds his gears. I'm from Pittsburgh. My father was a longshoreman. My father before him was a steel worker. My father before him was a rail line worker. Let me tell you what really grinds my gears. What really grinds my gears is when we go out and we make the worst version of ourselves, and we don't even see it, right? People tell us and we say, hey, it's up yours, buddy, right? This grinds my gears. I'm complaining right now. Let me speak freely. So we make the only available version of ourselves worse and worse and worse. And then we end up like a schmuck. We end up being the victims of injustice ourselves, having once perpetuated great injustice ourselves. So you must ask, not what a political life is. Do not ask what an economic life is. Do not ask of justice. You must ask, why am I the schmuck here? Why am I the victim? I'm the schmuck, right? This isn't Mama's Fagioli. This isn't Franco Stromboli's. This is my life, you must say. Take back your life. Don't be the schmuck. Don't be a schmuck. This grinds my gears. I'll tell you what. Vote for Duck for president. Write in on your ballot, Ducks why. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that is why I 110% agree with America. Although I do think there's a very rich interpretation I'd encourage people to see working in the world as we somehow find an out of bounds line, if that exists. Maybe we can cover that sometime soon. Not like it's a classroom or something, but yeah, you guys subscribe if you guys want to follow the channel. Maybe we can do a session on morality and geopolitics. Actually, curiously, for a lot of people that support like these anarchist views, these views that offense and the military and energy is driving everything, geopolitics frequently in a normal sense, not even in an optimistic sense, asks about moral interpretations. It asks about moral limits. A lot of times it asks what is tolerable to a state and when do you get wise to something? How does this play into security dilemmas and other events that you encounter? So maybe I'd have to do a refresher. You guys are allowed to not know stuff. I'm allowed not to know stuff. And yeah, but I'll go online. I will look up research in political science. I have a political science degree, so I'm going to look up research in political science, see how it is. And in IR theory specifically, hey, all the IR theorists are, go count some ballots, you clown. And I'll say, hey, you're an IR theorist. You're not going to tell me to count ballots. If I want to go look at IR theory, I'll do so. I know social theory. I know how the method works. You guys are storytellers, right? Yeah. Let me use my political science degree and accuse you guys of narrative again. Let me accuse you guys of thinking. Quote thinking. Yeah. Aren't we all great thinkers? Yeah. There. So shout out anyone who loves the social science stuff. That's a little joke for you guys. That's a joke just for you guys. And yeah, nobody's really joking, right? Welcome to 2026. We live in the age of AMD Ryzen AI computer chips and all this other nonsense. What is that name? RU12? A only yeah, I've never had a problem with veganism. I'll just share that. I've never had a deep problem with veganism. I think it takes an adjustment. It's just my experience. I wouldn't lie to someone though. I think going fully vegan, even after you switch, not dealing with annoying cravings and stuff like this takes some time, but I think it can be worth it, right? It's not like nothing happens while that's going on. So whatever. How do you know online is the truth? Um, yeah, I mean, I skepticism. I would say, I think it's fine to be skeptic. I think it's fine to be a skeptic. Skepticism adopts this position. Skepticism adopts the position that someone may, it's skepticism is all the way down for me. It's saying that, well, maybe we trust a person as they ask to be recognized. So I'll type this in chat. This is just my own view. My point of view on skepticism. Okay, and I'm not meaning to write a textbook for you guys, but yeah, if you guys are skeptics, write, a really great exercise. This is one of the fun ones I learned from a professor back in college. Write your epistemic, write your justification for reading a textbook. Write a justification for reading a textbook. Yeah, I wrote an essay on this once. What is your justification? What is actually go all the way down and be as detailed as possible? Talk about why and when a textbook is considered like a good reading assignment or when it's justifiable. Um, uh, okay, yeah, and so this is one of my favorite ones. I'll just touch because this is the meat and potatoes of it. Okay. I don't know if that's a meme account, but I'm just gonna block you. I don't know. I don't know if this is like fascist Nazi play or something, but yeah. So, um, yeah. So this is my most important one on the end here. My point of view of skepticism: the theory, world, or person receiving the data can be wrong or incomplete, or inaccurate, or poorly referencing a world in which the information is meant for. So it can be wrong or incomplete or inaccurate or poorly referencing a world in which the information is meant for. So for me as a skeptic, sort of, there's a lot of reasons when we just communicate and we communicate imperfectly because language isn't perfect. Our experience isn't perfectly interpreted, and even really deeply researched and considered empirical research in the sciences. While it's probably the best knowledge, it's never meant to be comprehensive. And so at the end of it, I'm not saying to act like we're all a world. Not don't act like you are the only. It's the opposite, right? Be very humble. But also, in my opinion, my recommendation or advice is be very humble. But also, when we're talking about being told something because we're supposed to be some way, we're supposed to be some person, we're supposed to act some way. These are all cases, in my point of view. These are all cases. These are all cases, in my point of view, where um, these are all cases in my point of view where there's many different methodological and evidentiary reasons why we would reject information or reject in partial sense the way it's communicated or told to us. The best example I can think of is, if, like, let's say, like, here's a simple example: is somebody wants to sell you a nitrogen ice cream machine or something like this. Someone wants to sell you a nitrogen ice cream machine. Um, and your immediate reaction is that, like, look, I don't need to feel connected to a nitrogen ice cream machine. I sell ice cream. I'm an ice cream shop owner. Why do I need this nitrogen ice cream machine? And then they tell you about all the guests that come back. They tell you about how much fun it is for the family. And suddenly you, the ice cream shop owner, are looking at this nitrogen ice cream machine guy, Turkish ice cream, whatever it is, and you're saying, maybe I should buy it, right? Maybe I should buy the thing. Seems like people are going to love it. It's going to go with my business. But maybe this person's forgetting that, you run an ice cream shop. Here's the big difference, right? It's not that you're a narcissistic, egotistical business owner. It's just the fact that you run an ice cream shop outside Wrigley Field, outside the Cubs stadium. You run an ice cream shop outside where the World Cup's going to be played. This is where your ice cream shop is. And so it turns out that, look, you don't want the space of the nitrogen thing, but you also don't want the time, right? Your business works when you can scoop ice cream, talk to customers. It's a community environment. You need people coming back. You get enough random guests, but that's not the type of business you want to run. So even if this person tells you everything that's true about this ice cream maker, how much fun it is for everyone, there's still other ways in which that information can be interpreted just because you're wrong. Yeah. So that's what I think is, in terms of skepticism. It can be a little bit about, but the to me it's also weird to be a skeptic. I'm a skeptic by nature because I don't know why. I guess I like doing it myself. I like doing it myself is just my personality. Yeah, I'm a bowling ball. This is who I actually am as a person. Your buddy duck. I'm like a bowling ball. I'll go forward with stuff. I'm like a bowling ball. I'm very hard to deter. It doesn't matter what changes. It doesn't matter. I get scratched, dented, bruised, whatever. I'll keep going forward. To some detriment to myself, even sometimes. But the other thing is, I like doing stuff myself. I like learning stuff myself for the first time, as if for the first time in ever. So, whatever. The fairness is optional, consequences are not. Yeah, great point. Great point. Great point. In politics, yeah, fairness, saying that fairness isn't something that comes with the original social contract in all views, except for John Rawls, right? John Rawls does just define justice as fairness. It's still a very contemporary theory of justice as fairness. And it views us as game theoretic, right? It views us as not rational, like John Locke said, but adopting game theoretic views of human nature. So maybe we can do more on this later. I don't know when justice got popular to talk about, but that's what I'd love to do on the channel eventually. Whatever. I'm praying to God. Yeah. Can you imagine a world without Democrats and Republicans try to run it? That world would be perfect. Stop voting for the same stuff. Yeah, great point, Kane. Great point. All right, looks like a lot of fun. But I'm gonna block these channels. I'm sorry. I apologize. Instead of nitrogen ice cream, just do or sell whippets instead. At least, unless that is what myself as Satan would like you to do. Hey, what's going on, Almost High? Great to see you. Great to see ya. Why is there a chain of fake accounts? First the judge, then the copyright fake, and now straight up Satan? Did I miss one? Oh no, I think real Satan is on topic, right? Real Satan isn't memeing, isn't doing meme troll stuff. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the person I've been. I like being silly, guys. I talked about this with one of my friends online the other day. I talked about how I do like being silly. I do like being silly. And yeah, we should like being silly, but we should also not be silly at other people's expense, in my view. I'm an old guy, right? I'm 36 years old. I've had lots of times to be indulgent and silly. So I apologize if I'm cutting down on the fun, cutting down on the size of the audience and stuff with it. I'm okay with it. Oh my God, we got Marilyn in chat. What's up, Marilyn? Great to see you. Happy day, happy day. We got the real queen of the Orthodox and debate panel verse in the house, 1313 Marilyn. So great to see you. Yeah, and good to see you. Woo. Yeah, buddy. Oh my God. I thought of Maryland. I actually thought of Maryland just the other day. I was watching a great debate, made me think of modern day debates where I sometimes run into you. It was William Lane Craig versus a female theologist. It was so interesting. It was so interesting. I'm still fascinated, and you're not that old. Yeah, I'm 36. Isn't that old? But man, I was telling a Reiki practitioner, guys, just today, and I'm sorry, just today I was on a Reiki channel. And yeah, chat was popping. I didn't understand what a lot of people were saying. It was my first time on a Reiki channel, first time kind of came across it in my algorithm. And I told the creator, I was like, okay, look, this Reiki stuff is overwhelming for me. That's the first thing I said, that when I look out into the world at the world's energy that's outside of me, I just tend to think that, yeah, this is, very coherently, but this is overwhelming. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't really get a great answer back. So I want to go back and do more Reiki stuff. I want to go back and learn more Reiki. But yeah, the other thing I said, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We got the lettuce in the chat. We got the party. Thanks so much, dude. Appreciate it. Thank you. It's very kind. It's very kind. But the other thing I said is that, like, yeah, look, I love life, but sometimes I get tired of the present moment. This is my problem. Yeah, hey, yeah, sign me up. I would subscribe instantly, Marilyn, if you're gonna do content. You're almost 50, cool. 50 years young, right? 50 going on 21. We say all these things, right? Charlie Haskell or whatever it is, yeah. 21 going on 21. As if it never happened, as if it always, whatever. Yeah, but yeah, when you wake up passed out in the hall, that's how I know I think people are getting old. If you guys have never just passed out walking around your house, you guys don't know what, this is me being a 36-year-old being like, like a 36-year-old recovering drug addict, drunk, mentally deranged, online gooner, pervert, whatever it is. But yeah, if you've never just woken up on your floor, then you must not be doing something right. But I told this Reiki practitioner that my problem, my feminine divine, my outlook on life is that I have so many problems, I have so many challenges, staying in the present moment, being fully myself while I'm living life. And it makes me wonder, even when we see, like, I don't want to be selfish, but I can't help but think there's got to be dissonance that holds us back. And this is the same thing to me. This is the same thing as being self-absorbed. And I'm sorry if I'm in my own head on this, but the same thing as being self-absorbed or something like this. The same thing as being maybe, thinking of yourself. Oh, we always hate the female Karens, male Karens who seem to always have a threat in their back pocket, right? It's always not good enough. There's always a complaint. There's always a response to it. But it seems to me in line with that, yeah, even if I fancy myself such a do-gooder or something like this, then why wouldn't I if I'm fancy myself such a do-gooder, why wouldn't I also consider that it's easy to lose sight of political victories, and it's easy to decontextualize who someone is actually fighting against or what we're fighting against, right? The actual political goal, maybe this is like very healthy duck therapy. This is my Reiki answer, maybe. My Reiki answer is maybe that, yeah, we don't want a world without Donald Trump. We want a world where we're not spending all this time and money on the military, and people understand why. We want a world where education and personhood and beingness is valued, and it's not in order to go chase after the almighty dollar. We want a world where there's constitutional rights, where it's written down, where you can trust the process and system. But we want that because people will look toward that system to learn, to be educated, and to check themselves for fairness. Hey, what's going on, Emmy? Good to see you. Hey, what's going on, MST? Yeah, yeah, we can't see you. Ducks chat is covering you. Hey. Oh, what's happening? Do I have something up? Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put something up when I shouldn't have. Yeah, and so that's it. So that's it, my other big thing that's going on in my life now that we've got 21 people here. Guys, by the way, tap like, feel free to subscribe if you like politics. Yeah, be nice to each other. Be nice, guys. Stop fighting. I'm trying to secure my invitation to Hot Girl Summer, and I'm trying to secure my invitation to Smart Girl Summer, and I don't know how to go about doing it. Right? I already figured out what I want to do. I want to get a Mai Tai. I want to scout out the lounge chairs and just go sit in the lounge chairs the entire time. But since I'm on YouTube, since I'm a big YouTuber now, we are almost at 2,000 subs, guys. By the way, we are 1.8K. I'm releasing more kind of personal content I want to right now. It's a little chaotic, so I apologize for anyone that's a content creator or seen that before. I'm sorry, but I try to cover the big stories, the big hits too. But yeah, I want to go to Hot Girl Summer. I want to continue to be apologetic about my desire to go to Hot Girl Summer and Smart Girl Summer. And at the end of it, my big hope is to emerge out of this still duck. I still want to be Nathan. I still want to be myself. So if you guys have any tips or tricks, yeah, good. Get out of my stream. People that don't want to plan Hot Girl Summer, you guys can get out. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're going places, folks. We are going places. I don't know if we're going to like the places we go, but no one can deny that we are indeed going there. Yeah, I want to double down though. I want to double down on these midterms. Let me know how you guys feel about this. I'm seeing the top political commentators cover our bases. We're all covering about who's going to win this election, who's going to win the next election, who's going to win the next heat of American politics, who's going to win the race, who's going to win the fight, who's going to spend their money most efficiently, who is going to who's going to be able to beat down and push away accusations that there's people in our country not acting in the best interest of the Constitution and Americans. Who's going to define those things the best for us? Who's going to cuddle up to the Wall Street elite the best? Who's going to be able to keep the wheels on while they're doing all this stuff? who's going to be able to make the complex simple and make the simple complex, actually in order to serve your interests. I've got no faith that these morons coming out of the RNC, the same guys that thought George Bush was going to be a big president and then went on to Donald J. Trump, and the same morons that said that you can have one Obama-sized Obama, one duck-sized Obama, you can have one duck-sized AOC, you can have one person who actually means it, even when you disagree with them, you think they're authentic, and then you can have all these idiots and morons, pulling up to Washington to vote 5 times a year. They love their PR team, they love their pieces, and they're going to fuel the military, right? They're going to go fight for a bunch of stuff people in their own constituents didn't ask for and don't need, And so I want to know the reality of it, right? I want to know where I'm going to pitch in. But we can't do that without trust. We can't do that without getting in the weeds ourselves. We can't do that without leading from the front. And I do think that Ducks Y is a chance to make an impact there. I'd love for the channel to continue to do so, like not hit pieces, but honest discussions about what justice can actually mean. I want to do honest discussions about, why do we feel like we have to compete in our own lives, and why is it that competition in a political and economic sense, we don't leave worse for wear. We don't leave, you don't pass a certain point. If you don't pass go, you learn something that's maybe a growing or learning experience. But then at the end of it, there's also a stronger recognition that political thought. Here's maybe where I diverge because of a bias or because this is how I actually feel. But political thought talks about our human nature. Political thought talks about the points of return that we reach in society, the points of return where mechanisms push us back. Political thought tells us that, the party's never going to last forever. And there's some parties that are not worth having that leave a scar forever. So, yeah, so that's what I think. And I'm going to stick to it. Hey, thanks so much, Susan B, for the high five. Thank you. I missed that on my screen, but thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. And let me be more honest about this too. The fact that, one of the issues I've been really concerned with is the Supreme Court. I've been really, really concerned that Democrats feel like we have to pack the bench in order to win. And we do have to win for issues on women's rights and things like this. But one of the things that I'm concerned about is that we've gone so far where we can't even have conversations in public. And we've gone so far where we can't even trust legal rulings coming from the Supreme Court. I mean, what a breakdown this is. Where does this come from? When we look at institutionalism and we say, well, the Supreme Court, if they could be a lot of things, but the one thing that they have to be is writing good rulings and stuff like this. The Supreme Court, the one thing they should be doing is writing legal logic that you can reference repeatedly. And it should be understandable. It shouldn't read like an alien language to people who are American, who live here, people that would wish to immigrate here, people that swore an oath to the Constitution. It should look like everyday life. And we didn't see this in the Louisiana ruling. We didn't see this in Dobbs versus Jackson. And so, it's very dumb because when I see the morons on CNN, the morons on NBC, the morons on Fox News talking about, all this court bench stacking bullshit nonsense, none of this is still about, that foundation, right? None of it's about the foundation and about what you cannot lose and what you have to do to win. I would love to see conservatives starting to argue to bring things back to the state. I would love to see why we actually trust democracy to include everyone in citizenship, include everyone in the law, and not use two different systems of reasoning, not use two different systems of elections, not use two different economic systems, not use two different systems of generating wealth, not using two different systems for us's and them's around the world, not use two different systems because you've never met people in whatever Donald Trump would describe as these Haitian-like countries. I would encourage us, let's go to the Caribbean, right? Not all of us as Americans, but why, when we're the richest hemisphere on earth, is there not support for people that are just like us, who are asking for the same things? Man, I hope we can go find that stuff out. I really do. What's your, What's your opinion of overturning the precedent in many of the Supreme Court decisions? Some of the arguments are just nonsense. Hey, Susan B. Yeah, that is, my opinion. Whatever. If I had let's just say, if I had an 18-year-old law student, and I'm not a legal theorist, but I'd say come sit down on my lap here, and we're not talking about the law, but we're talking about how people decide what reality is like. I felt in Dobbs versus Jackson, introducing as a legal precedent that somehow a case that is seems in every way to be about history and discrimination, suddenly judges that maybe shouldn't have seen this case in the first place have to decide on it. And I'll come back to this in a second, just deciding what reality is. But when we consider that the Supreme Court rejects 99 to 99.5% of cases, the reason I think the Dobbs-Jackson ruling looks so wonky to people. The Dobbs-Jackson ruling looks so wonky to people. It's so blunt. It's so head-on. It's almost this unreferenceable precedent. And then we see a similar decision in Louisiana. So these are the two I'm most familiar with. And the fact that these Supreme Court justices, in one sense, said you can't take a snapshot of the world in Dobbs-Jackson, even if that's how you wanted to do it, doesn't seem to violate jurisprudence in any sense, doesn't seem to violate constitutional principles in any sense. It's not just telling a story, it's wondering what the legally relevant circumstances are. And then in Louisiana, you get to the same exact thing. So now you have two instances where the Supreme Court tells you how to empirically analyze what is legally relevant, what jurisprudence has to be taken to mean practically, and then what are the metaphysics. In both decisions, it's telling you, well, this is actually, based on the law, this is what reality is actually has to be like. So now in Louisiana, the way I read it as maybe more political thought or philosopher guy, I read it as saying, well, Supreme Court justices should ask what reality was like at the time of these laws were written. No one's ever said this. This is very unorthodox language. It seems like far-right judicial activism. It seems like taking judicial realism a step further. And so I don't see it as like good referenceable law, but that's my view of it. Hey, Noah. Yeah, no, I have Donald Trump's book here. This isn't meant to be like a hard debate channel or it's a trap channel. So shout out to my America First, Make America Great folks. But yeah, I can, hold on. I'm very much not. Yeah, I'm very much not. I've got meme stuff. I've got meme stuff on, I don't mean to, it's not meant to be disrespectful, but because it's in the aesthetic or the zeitgeist, these are the ones we have. We have, so you can see this is how anti-Trump I am. We have the cross-eyed MAGA hat guy. We've got the make-believe guy. So that's about geopolitics. That's about political theory. We've got Trump Epstein. So that's anti-Trump. And then we've got a joking communist potato. So centrist, but yeah, kind of. So Odin, hey, what's up? Let me see what Odin said. Democrats and Republicans are just Israel's puppets. Yeah, I can prove you wrong. Your thoughts are not evidence. Your thoughts are not evidence, Odin. Yeah, your thoughts are not evidence of the world. There's no theory of Israel. There doesn't exist a theory of Israel controlling U.S. politicians. And so your thoughts and beliefs are not evidences themselves. Your thoughts and beliefs don't make reality real. And so that's not true. That's not true. Hey, what's going on, Dave? Great to see you. Great to see you, buddy. Great to see you, buddy guy. How do you know what happened if we just got... But yeah. LAP, I don't know what LAP is. I don't know what LAP is. Is that supposed to say LARP or I'm missing something? Sorry if I'm missing context, Salty. I don't know if that was meant for me or someone else. Hey, yeah. And Puggles is also posting our art series emojis. We've got our art series emojis. We've got the art series emojis as well. And yeah, and so, this is meant to hopefully help us have integrative conversations while still not shying off of our beliefs. I would hope that having integrated brains, having different ways to reference evidences gives us confidence. It does not take it away. I'm obviously not meaning to be a cult leader, but I think it's something healthy for brains in general. One of the great principles one of the great principles that we've forgotten is that in brainland, in the land of the brain, in the land where brains exist and brains are real, in the land where brains are real, some people have forgotten that the language of the prefrontal cortex, as cruel as it is and mean as it is to call people talking about your life. It is to tell people who are talking about your life, talking about things they don't understand. Your brain is dumb. Your brain is dumb, right? If you do not know something, and I don't mean to be too Andrew Tate-ish, but yeah, if you're talking about something you don't understand, that's a dumb thing to do. We see these dumb people in Washington, D.C. talking about economics. Which economics? Microeconomics, macroeconomics, political economy? You don't know? Right, that's because you're an idiot, right? So say that back to me. I don't care who voted for you. I don't care what school you went to. I don't care if you're a lawyer or a mathematician. You tell me that you don't know which layer of economics, when it's true, how it's true, in what sense it's true, for whom it's true, where it's true. You're telling us about our future economy. You're telling us about how we're going to pay for kids' colleges. You're telling us about the gallon of gas in 8 months. You're telling us about the gallon of gas and the Amazon rainforest in 8 months. I don't care. If you don't know the answer, then just say it with me. You are dumb. You are an idiot, right? That is, if people in Washington talking about your life are unable to be honest with themselves, this is a custom, standard, tradition. It is proper syntax. It is, it's everything. It's everything. And so I don't think there's an acceptable reason why, in my opinion, there's not an acceptable reason why we have people lying to us. We can grant a little grace, a little tolerance, but the petty stuff, man, I'll tell you what, the petty stuff we get mad at each other about, and the serious stuff that we ignore, the serious stuff that we don't actually fix ever, to me, it's nonsensical. It's unacceptable. Yeah. Call the spade a spade and let's get done with it. Yeah. Tap like on the stream if anyone wants to subscribe. I appreciate you guys. We just hanging out tonight. We love growing the channel. I'm at 1.8. I love growing the channel. I'm at 1.87K right now on Ducks Y. We've got some great content formats in the shorts feed. You guys can tap the bell for these live streams. I try to show up proper. I try to come somewhat correct every day, research streams. And yeah, I try to read chat and stuff like that. Thank you for being here and great to see you. More on the stock market is in all three major markets is at its highest ever. Yeah, but that's right. It's not a but. It's when you politically judge how the economy's doing, you're not bestowed to follow this one metric of whether or not the stock ticker is right. We've seen it can be wrong in the past, and we've seen it can be wrong for different reasons. Some of those are more consequential than others. In 2008, the stock market was wrong because executives made a mistake and then chose to lie about it. They made a mistake and then chose to lie about it. They did something they thought they were allowed to do. They did something they thought the free market would catch them. It did not. And it turned into one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in the history of the world. But when I see a stock market at an all-time high, and I know Peter Thiel's stocks, guys, and I'll show you this. You guys, I'm not a hater. I have Peter Thiel's book right here. And Peter Thiel and I would probably have a lovely conversation when it comes to politics, when it comes to the way that he's spoken down condescendingly to people, the way that he, as a billionaire, has ran with the idea that you guys are idiots, that I'm an idiot. Look, I'm telling you guys, I'm a gooner, I'm an internet perv, whatever. I'm sorry. I'm a moron. I'm a dummy. But when we look at this Peter Thiel guy, and I say, look, Peter, you've been brilliant, right? You were one of the people that brought payments to the digital space. You saw it before people. You saw it through. You built the company you wanted to build, and then you built what the market asked, right? So 0 to 1, hell yeah, I bought your book, dude. But then on the other side of it, it's like, you're fueling this narrative. You're war profiteering. You're war profiteering. And so your economy contains these liars, these thieves, and like, just just get out with it, right? Are you telling the truth? Do you actually believe what you're selling? If you don't actually believe what you're selling, if you believe that there's an inefficiency that your company hasn't spoken for yet, if you see it as politically kind of riding the highest stock price, the highest sales price, the best value chains that money can buy, the best use of a college degree is go work for Palantir, build another graph database. You really think that? You really think that you really think your guys have this covered? You really think that, I've seen Jensen Wang, you probably know him, but you guys really don't think that, I see this guy and I don't think he's tired enough, right? It's not that I want you to be tired. It's I want to, as a market participant, the guy who's more fucking poor and broke than you'll ever be in your life ever again. I'm still there. I still have to worry about a future for my family. I still have to worry about my daughter. I still have to worry about my values being, an anarcho-cosmopolitan. I still have to worry about my values in all this sense. So as much as I'd love to think that there's somehow some, like the great white wolf that's coming around to correct a failure in reason, a failure in game reasoning, a failure in a connection to our natural self, I don't see it. And so when you're talking about the economy being at an all-time high, I got to point out these AI CEOs. I got to point out these national defense companies, these aerospace companies. I got to point out the oil and gas sector. There's no way. When we just look, we can look at the split of management jobs, of energy GDP, of the political means necessary to secure energy around the world. And so I ain't celebrating anything. I don't think Donald Trump's solving for market risks, and I don't think he's solving for pricing. Can you imagine? Here's how unjust I think this is. Can you imagine buying a new, who was it? It was Lenovo or HP. One of these computer companies just released these new Copilot PCs designed for creators. And they've got these really beautiful new AMD Ryzen computer chips. And so if you're a computer person, it's this fast computer. It's got cores dedicated to AI tasks. And you can get integrated graphics. It handles memory incredibly well. And so in some sense, for somebody looking for an all-in-one workstation, maybe you have some ambitions, you're doing some stuff with AI, it's a perfect solution. But can you imagine being the person using this product? You research it for months and months, and then you go out to produce the work as in graphic design, rendering stuff in 20 minutes instead of 2 hours or an hour, whatever it is. You do the work, you return it to the client, and then you realize in a couple years that none of the stuff you built was actually optimized. You left money on the table, or the work was poor quality. The thing you were doing wasn't what you actually believed in. Like, I'm honestly the only one here, right? You don't even see it, And so, I must be the lunatic. Someone called me a schizophrenic in chat. I think that's cruel, otherizing, dehumanizing language. Whatever. If you guys want to say I'm mentally ill, that's fine. But I don't think CEOs that are willing to lie to people or not put their authentic values and what you're producing in the same bucket and put that out front. Don't lead me like a horse, right? I'm not don't lead me like you think you don't respect other beings, so you're going to lead me like a horse. Don't talk to me like that. Don't treat me like that. I don't need to be spoken down to telling me to look at the stock market. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. Yeah, Zigzag saying Trump will be the best president of all time. Hey, maybe, man. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think if we had a chance to actually examine Trump's track record and what he's been good at, his kind of messaging, you can roll it up into the people that are failing. You can roll it up into the compounding problems, the level of risks he's having to take. I personally don't think Donald Trump is doing a great job. I don't think there's a lot of great arguments to support that he's the best president of all time. He's the best president of all time. I mean, really, come on. I'm not saying literally. Like, do you think I'm telling you literally that Donald Trump is the best president of all time? No, I couldn't say that. I couldn't say that. Yeah. The increasing level of risks Donald Trump has taken, this was publicized recently just for folks that haven't been on the most recent streams. We've talked about it. I've mentioned it. This was published reporting that a White House insider came out and said that Trump wanted the Iranian president to resign. He had a covert intelligence operation trying to reinstall Ahmadinejad. And now that we're seeing Congress vote against the war, and it appears that the IRGC is back in power in a more profound sense, it really does seem that Donald Trump accomplished what he wanted to accomplish in some sense, but he's still saying he didn't. It seemed like he'd accomplished what he wanted to earlier, but I guess, I don't know. Who knows? Whatever. Very annoying. Very, very, very annoying, guys. No, we can just sit here like this. Whoops. My name is Morty Schwirmer. Has your doctor recently revealed that your genital herpes has spread all over your body? You may be subject to a litigation or a payout. At Morty Schwirmer, Davis, and Lewis, we specialize in genital herpes and all other kinds of lawsuits related to your personal health and wellness and the pain and suffering that you've endured. We have close relationships with pharmaceutical companies spanning back to the 1890s before the microbiome was discovered. At Morty Schwirmer, Davis, Lewis, and Lewis, we go all the way out for you. If your lawyers aren't representing you and they can't explain what mitosis and meiosis is, and that's the only biological concepts you're familiar with, because you're a hoity-toity lawyer, you're a computer designer, but you have genital herpes, contact Morty Schwirmer with Davis, and Lewis and Associates. We can fight for you to get the justice you deserve now. All right, everyone. This is Morty Schwirmer, and I'm the owner of Refurbished PCs U. At Refurbished PCs U, you can take a crash course, a collision course, and not be the crash test dummy. You can discover now with Morty Schwirmer how to start your home computer repair business. Call Morty Schwirmer at 577-632-5555 and get your free coursework on how to start a used computer repair business with Morty Schwirmer's Computer U. Hi, my name's Morty Schwirmer, and I'm home to the auto loan guys. If you're sick, you're fed up with the used car dealers, call Morty Schwirmer with the auto loan guys. We can get you secured fast, safely, and get you the financing you need for the vehicle of your dreams. Call the number on your screen, 555-555-632-32, and ask for Morty Schwirmer. Morty Schwirmer with the and ask for my personal assistant. This is Morty Schwirmer with the auto loan guys, and we can get you your financing for your dream car today. Are you sick of boring mitzvah food? Call Morty Schwirmer with Mitzvah Catered for You. That's Mitzvah Catered for You. My name's Morty Schwirmer, and I was fed up of having mitzvah food, which wasn't really suitable for our guests or the occasion, so I started Mitzvah Food for You. My name is Morty Schwirmer. Call the number on your screen, 555-555-7324. Again, my name's Morty Schwirmer with Mitzvah Food for You. You know, back when I was attending mitzvahs regularly, I always thought this food is dry, it's uncouth, it's cold, the guests are unsatisfied. That's why I started Mitzvah Food for You. Call the number on your screen today to get your mitzvah catered with something warm, fresh, just like whatever. You're inviting a shishka, you wanna, you got all these things going on with you, so you want it right. Call Morty Schwirmer, Mitzvah Food for You at 555-434-3257. Sorry, Grandma. This Saturday night, for one night only, going down at the Midtown Club is Marty Schwimmer's Battle of the Jazz Bands. Marty Schwimmer is the premier event organizer for jazz bands in the Phoenix Valley. Call the number on your screen. Get tickets today. Seats are limited. It's 555-743-ROCK. 555-733-ROCK. This Saturday only at Midtown Bar, Marty Schwimmer's Battle of the Jazz Bands. This is one night to rule them all. 12 of the best jazz bands, 12 of the best musicians, 12 of the best soundtracks, and one night to leave it all out on the floor. This is Marty Schwimmer, the best dance organizer in town. Call the number on your screen to reserve tickets to the Midtown Battle of the Jazz Bands tonight. 555-432-7897. This is Marty Schwimmer. Are you sick of boring dating apps? My name's Marty Schwimmer, and I've started YouTube Date. At YouTube Date, you never have to introduce yourself, and you can find the soulmate of your dreams. On YouTube Date, Marty Schwimmer's our top data scientists and leading engineers have found ways that PFPs and obscure messages can help you find the soulmate that you never knew you needed but always wanted. My name's Marty Schwimmer. I started YouTube Date because I was sick and tired of having bad dates on all the other dating sites. J-Date, that's a Jewish date. Plenty of Fish, that's a Christian date. YouTube Date, that's a YouTube date. My name's Marty Schwimmer. I invite you. My name's Marty Schwimmer. As a lawyer, I always had so much problem times meeting other people. My name's Marty Schwimmer. I started YouTube Date. If you're interested in meeting people online and maybe finding the match of your dreams, then come out now. Download YouTube Date. My name's Marty Schwimmer. And I'm the founder of YouTube Date. YouTube Date is the premier dating site. YouTube Date is built utilizing. We have IP. My name's Marty Schwimmer. At YouTube Date, we're built using intellectual property. We boast over 500,000 YouTube users. We've got one-click integration. That's how so many people have signed up so far today. Invest in YouTube Date today. My name's Marty Schwimmer. Thank you very much, everyone. My name's Marty Schwimmer. I'd like to formally introduce myself as a potential candidate and recipient of a golden invitation to Hot Girl Summer. My name's Marty Schwimmer. I love reading. I love long walks on the beach. I don't like Thai food that much. My name's Marty Schwimmer. I want to go to Hot Girl Summer because I want to become more in touch with myself and make lifelong connections that leave an indelible impact on both of our lives. My name's Marty Schwimmer. I've had the same board shorts for 19 years, but I'm going to buy new ones this year. Please invite me to Hot Girl Summer. Yeah, my name's Marty Schwimmer. I don't text or call that often. I prefer email. I'm seeking an invitation to Hot Girl Summer. I'm seeking the invitation to Hot Girl Summer because I'm loads of fun. Because fun is in my middle name. Really, my middle name, my full name is Marty Fun Davis Schwimmer. That was a joke. That was an example of how much fun I am. I don't have a Facebook profile. I don't have a MySpace. I used to listen to Justin Timberlake on the car to work. I'd like an invitation to Hot Girl Summer because I've discovered the Electric Daisy Carnival music page on YouTube. And I see all the people dancing and the sounds, the lights, the lasers, all the fun. And for Marty Schwimmer, it looks like a ball. So I'm seeking your cordial invitation. I've talked to my lawyers over at Davis & Lewis, and they've said that I can sign any sort of
secession of rights, arbitration clauses, etc., in order to attend Hot Girl Summer this year. Once again, I prefer email. I don't text. I don't call. I wear sunscreen, and I always pack a small airplane pillow. And I typically use it at the hotel for familiarity. My name is Marty Schwimmer. Once again, I have legal representation with Davis, Lewis, etc. And you can email me if you'd like to extend an invite to Hot Girl Summer this year. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. That was Marty Schwimmer. My name's Morty Schwimmer. Hello. What happened? Yeah, I've verified in the past that ITF Dave is correct. Yeah, if ITF Dave is talking about something, he's correct. He's been correct since he was a young child. If it's regarding politics, he may not be right, but you can still listen to him. What is it? Section 224 of 2027. Yeah, let me see if I have that one. I'm gonna go to responsible. Let's see. Let's go to this website, Responsible Statecraft. Let's see. I don't know if this is any better. Rep. Khanna took the America First approach against Section 224, but was outnumbered by those who played down its dangers and implications. It would be a higher level. The House struck down an amendment to strip a measure from the annual defense policy bill. So the policy bill was was going to strip a measure, and the bill was struck down, and that would provide Israel a higher level of military integration with the U.S. than Washington than with any other country in the world. And so they wanted to deprive the military budget bill. So it was a bill. So it was law. It was law with funding attached to it that would pay for and actually produce higher levels of military integration. And the amendment sought to remove this, and it was struck down. So pro-Israel voices on House Armed Service Committee argued that reports about Section 224, that Congress was trying to integrate the U.S. and Israel military systems as a way to entrench aid without proper oversight were disingenuous and wrong. In fact, members claimed that these were existing initiatives, that Section 224 actually improves oversight and accountability for these programs by designating a single official responsible to them, according to
according to Chairman Mike Rogers. According to Chairman Mike Rogers, so not quite true, said the Quincy Institute's Ben Freeman, who broke the initial story for the RS last week. Members of Congress supporting the proposal laid out caricatures of critiques against Section 224. And when they did actually talk about the provision itself, they spread half-truths and outright inaccuracies about how far this provision will go to integrate the U.S. and Israeli defense sectors. So according to Freeman, would lay the groundwork for bilateral research and development. So this is what proponents of 224 said: bilateral research and development, co-production of weapons, joint ventures, licensing agreements, seemingly every manner of U.S.-Israeli military-industrial complex cooperation. The U.S. and Israel already work together heavily on missile defense, but this provision would greatly expand coordination to seemingly every area of defense tech, including AI, quantum autonomous systems, directed energy, cyber, biotech, and many more. It also proposes network integration and data fusion. In other words, the U.S. military data could soon be the Israeli military's data. So critically, it would shift the annual $3.8 billion the U.S. now gives Israel a 10-year memorandum of understanding soon up for renewal to these programs and partnerships, i.e. co-production. Another fusion deep inside the Pentagon, procurement and acquisition process, where sunlight is rare and often fleeting. A perfect solution, which is by the way endorsed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Given the dwindling American support for Israel wars and the U.S. military assistance for them. Very wasteful economy of writing, by the way. I just want to point this out. If there's any other writers, this is incredibly wasteful economy, given the dwindling American support for Israel's wars and the U.S. military assistance for them. This has nothing to do with the story. This has absolutely nothing to do with what they were talking about. So I'll pull that up. The American, they lead on that this is what Ro Khanna wanted to talk about. He saw the majority of Americans say they do not want to send more aid to Israel. The American people are tired of the arrogance and insolence of Prime Minister Netanyahu telling America what we should do. The entire country of Israel has a GDP. The entire country of Israel has a GDP that is less than a single town in my district. Yet somehow Netanyahu thinks he could tell the American people what we should do, he charged. I am for Team America. I'm for the interests of the country. Whoops. Okay. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Yeah, that's a crazy story, isn't it? That's a wild one. That's a wild one. If anyone wants to go subscribe to our mod, Almost High, she's looking not to get monetized. She's looking to get, Almost High is looking to get to her 50 subs. She's going to have fun live streams too, I think. So if you want to go sub to her, I dropped the link. It should have hyperlinked and it didn't. But if you guys are on PC, you can just go to almost.high at YouTube and subscribe to her. It's because I'm not here, right?
What are your thoughts on the 401k plans being forced to invest in corporations like Twitter, SpaceX, and Tesla that don't make any profits? Also, when was that? Yeah, hey, Timothy Travis, it's been a long time. Yeah, I think it's just as risky to pull out of Cloud 100 businesses, Cloud 100 or top 100 tech businesses, because someone has a political feeling or a wish or a desire about them. Unfortunately, there's a strong case to be made that it makes, whoops, sorry for the double audio for just a second there. Unfortunately, I think it makes financial sense and fiduciary sense to index in funds and to stay the course. If you guys maybe got, it's not linking still, so I'm just gonna take it out, but that should have been linking anyways. If you guys want to subscribe to Almost High. And yeah, I think the advice though is, you can still invest. If I have moral or political advice, you can still invest in sustainability funds. ESG is the designation that's been pushed back on, but also more accepted by financiers and hedge fund managers. So if you guys have heard this one, it maybe doesn't mean anything. I remember there was a time where like sustainability funds included big oil companies, energy companies, and I don't think it's smart to have. I don't think it is. While we should have good reasons, and there are justifiable reasons to be opposed to big oil and things like this, it also doesn't really make sense that you would classify a fund as sustainable and call it this when it's not the case. When it's not that, right? That's not what that is. So, yeah. So I'm sorry, but that's what I think about that, guys. I'm sorry. Whoa, bro. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, what a weird spending bill. What a weird way to spend militaries and integrate militaries. I don't know what the messaging is that we're gonna have integrated hardware or operational capacities with Israel, or what the signal is and things like this. Yeah, what the signal is. I think people are right to be upset and see a war where 100,000 people died, 100,000 innocent Gazans and Palestinians died in that war. And it's still going on today. It expanded to Lebanon. It expanded to Yemen. Some may argue for some reason it expanded to Iran. So it certainly seems like odd timing. If diplomacy had ever been important, why? What's the logic? What's the logic of having a very public, very loud, and then Ro Khanna packing in on this military bill? What's the logic of having military spending integrate when Americans who saw how horrific October 7th was, and Americans who saw how horrific the response was and how persistent it was, how pervasive it was, and how indebted the United States seems to be within the Middle East. It's not just the fact that we're maintaining all these foreign military bases, but it's also the fact that, there are political standards, there's moral limits to things, moral limits to when a democracy would say the national interest allows spending on defense, allows for deterrence measures, allows for research measures, and allows what seems like unconditional. Love is supposed to be unconditional. I don't think the military is, in my opinion. But yeah, I'd have to think quite a bit more about it. I guess after the fact, right? So that shows you where I am. Hey, what's going on, Jazzy? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always, I don't know why finance isn't subject to more moral rules in, there's an interesting topic that I think is involved in political thought, which is Islamic finance. And I'm gonna make myself smaller. I'm gonna make myself less here. Make myself less here. Yeah, and so why is it when we make choices for, I mean, I don't know. I'm maybe not the most qualified to lead this conversation. When we make choices for economics, like why in the West or why anywhere else why do our choices only go back to a discussion about economic utility, and that utility is void of moral reasoning? It's a void of moral reasoning. I brought this up earlier and didn't say anything about it. Maybe some of you guys caught this. I was talking about Peter Thiel and just feeling lied to about AI computer chips, which I do care about quite a bit. It's one of those important things for me. But if you can't honestly buy a computer or PC, and you also, I guess, okay, yeah, we can't honestly buy a PC without feeling trustworthy of the thing we're going to go out and do, or the reason we made the decision. But then we also see on the other side $1 billion military spending packages, right? $1 billion military spending packages that are coming in the wake of the October 7th war, an ongoing conflict, as well as a rise in military security dilemmas and global conflict that's really emerged in the post-COVID era, the post-C-19 era. So it's been this way for a long time. It's been this way. The tensions with Hamas and Israel had existed for some time. Neither side was able to reach a place of willingness or an ability to, right? It's not an ability, it's a claimed inability to use diplomacy, to use negotiation tactics, to reach some consensus, an inability to apparently cede any ground to one another. And so if that's true, and we're just moving these small paradigms to bigger paradigms, that's one interpretation. That's one interpretation, that the U.S. isn't messing around, and that even with Ro Khanna representing maybe this left-leaning sort of business national interest voice, even with Ro Khanna leading these sort of conversations, it appears the national interest and national character of the U.S. is defined as a willingness to bring these issues up a level. And there's perhaps, this is maybe recognition that the international system hasn't consolidated in other orders. If we go back and think about, well, why are value-laden processes seemingly operating in anarchy persistently? It's just very strange. It's very strange. So, yeah. Yeah. A weird thing, like, this is more just political thought stuff. I think it sort of is. Is it? Yeah. I mean, it's really weird to see that economic modalities, that economic thinking, utility-based thinking, these topics do extend to many different areas, humanitarian ends, towards small descriptions in global order, that can extend from Washington or extend from cosmopolitanism, They can push back down, and in some theory, right, not practically, but in some sense, you would think people would create a demand for thinking about citizenship, about engagement in terms of dollars and cents, about creating something measurable that creates change, that creates smaller and closer connections in stronger democracies. I think, and that instills a sense of participation in political norms and values, and factionalism, competition that doesn't owe itself to any political party and doesn't owe itself to any specific political agenda, but is still able to operate. It's weird to think that if factionalism is operating in the United States and it's still around these geopolitical issues, then how do we interpret? How would we? Right? This is great stuff. This is great stuff. And I apologize, but how would we interpret someone like Donald Trump seemingly taking an increasingly high level of risk in his own foreign policy strategy? How would we interpret Donald Trump seemingly not owning up to any of what appears as loud, obvious mistakes in domestic policy and budgets? It's very strange to think that there's almost this, is it the case, if it's the case that Donald Trump sees himself simultaneously having to push out more and more foreign policy, push out more and more geopolitics, but at the same time, one of the reasons this is because the U.S. interest has become so indebted to these global issues, so indebted to regions that don't involve the U.S., and so indebted to issues that don't involve economics and institutional focused diplomacy, focused on democratic norms and values. And so is it the case that the competitive logic is less ideological than Donald Trump himself has claimed? Is it the case that the competitive logic is just that, well, the reason these big decisions look risky is because they are. Quite frankly, they are. But quite frankly, you're betting on the foundations of political theories, preventing more and larger outbreaks of conflict. You're betting that the macro conditions preserve those sort of micro foundations and foundations that allow you to run game scenarios in competition. So very, very wild stuff. And this also goes back to show, I think, in my view, that the individual level of analysis, looking at a president or looking at any member of the executive, someone in international governance, ends up being far weaker than we often give it credit for. If it's the case that Trump is in decline domestically, independents are voting against Trump, they're voting against bad policy in the United States. These are separate issues, but if this is the case, it's also the case that any president who is in office right now would be dealing with these same macro conditions, and so we have to assess how Donald Trump is doing in this light. But this also bleeds over a little bit. It bleeds over a little bit for one to wonder that, well, the elephant in the room that's always been in the room is just military spending in general. It's always been energy expense in general, and it's always been the micro foundations of the foundations of the system that allow these things to be checked, these things to be contextualized in terms of national values and global values, in terms of international order, in terms of the moral limits and the reproachableness of these types of things. So I know this is really broad strokes, but when we see, the reason this seems like playing it so fast and loose, it's not just Vladimir Putin's war of aggression in the Ukraine. It's not just the ways in which the West doesn't yet understand multipolarity, doesn't understand an increased importance and role in ideology or culture, doesn't understand this increased ability to sort of work within microeconomic paradigms, or an increased ability to work outside of macroeconomic paradigms that are prescribed within liberalism. This is what BRICS Plus would want you to know, maybe. But these ideas that, well, when there isn't aggressive trade practices, we see the East thrive, we see Asia thrive. We should see an increased latitude in sovereignty and decision making, and neo-Hobbesian and liberal measures in Africa and in the rest of the quote developing world, or whatever you want to call it. maybe at the same time, when we're taking the emphasis off of individuals and looking at different ways to contextualize these underlying forces, you know, there's almost this draw or appeal to me to go back to education. But there's also this appeal that what you know is always going out and producing, what you know is also going out and always able to just produce the one thing, the same thing. Is that right? Is that not right? So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe the optimism off is that, if offensive realism is right and we're seeing this level of risk exist on the international system, we're seeing different forces that are maybe out front and different fundamental forces so described, right? There's different parallels that are maybe more dynamic that it appears in the present moment we're using to maintain this, or it's actually more peaceful and more quiet than some think it is. It's actually more peaceful and more quiet than some think it is. It still makes for good, like, I think, like, bedtime reading to it makes for good bedtime reading to see that markets are working and functional and things like this. But it doesn't bode well. I don't think it bodes well for thinking in terms of the political goods and products that a state is actually producing and what is innovative, or I don't know. Who knows? Maybe this is too thick for me. I can't get through this one, right? It's very fleshy. That's a hard problem. Yeah. Check back in a couple weeks. My name is Morty Schirmer. This is Morty Schwirmer with Think Tank Associates LLC. With Morty Schwirmer, you're always getting a qualified think tank associate. Call the number on your screen. It's 555-555-5329. Once again, my name is Morty Schwirmer with Think Tank Associates. It's 555-555-555. My name is Morty Schwirmer with Think Tank Associates. Once again, it's 555-555-555. My name is Morty Schwirmer with Think Tank Associates. It's 555-555-555. My name is Morty Schwirmer with Think Tank Associates. It's 555-555-555. Thank you so much. All right, guys, I'm going to close the stream out. Thanks so much for everyone who joined. Thanks for Puggles if you're sticking around. Thanks so much for the big super chat. Thanks for Marilyn. Thanks for the mods that spent some time here. Emmy, always good to see you. Good to see everyone. I wish I could keep the stream going. I'm a little tired. I'm also distracted because of that story that we just read. Yeah, thank you so much. So I'll talk to you guys later. And yeah, thanks so much, guys. Thanks everyone who contributed to the stream. That was a lot of fun for me.